Blues Creek guitars. This video here is going to show you how to do some rosetting, and I hope that you'll find it interesting. We've had a couple different types, a standard, and we're going to be showing you how to do custom rosetting. It's not difficult. The tools that I am using are modified tools that I've gotten from Stu Mac, but almost any kind of circle cutter with your imagination, and if you want to do it, you'll figure out how. D18 style rosette. So before you start the rosette, you got to know where everything is. So I have a template. I drew the body shape from the template onto my top, and at that point I now know where my 14th fret is. So at that point I can lay my fingerboard, and that's just a typical long scaled fingerboard. I can put that over the area of the 14th fret, and I'll make a mark. That mark will represent 1/8 of an inch from the top of the sound hole. So that's going to be right here. And from this point to the center of the sound hole should be about 6 inches. So I can take from here to here, and I'm going to come down 2, because the sound hole is going to be 4 inches, and from the top of the guitar to the center of the sound hole on this guitar is going to be just a hair under 6 1/8. Now, how you cut your rosette, there's a number of different jigs out there. I like these little centering jigs. However, I modified them from being able to use the Stu Mac setup to where I can use a high-speed die grinder. So I'm going to have to drill 2 holes, or actually 3 holes in this top, since this is all going to be scale length oriented, and my neck block will have 2/4 inch holes, 3/4 of an inch off center, and from this point, which is actually the part of the guitar, to here is 15/16 from the center of that hole to the outside of the rim. So I'm going to make a mark that is 15/16, and that is square to the center. And these are a registry hole that I use. It really doesn't matter what you use as long as what you have in the neck block will match to the neck, or to the top, because this is going to position this so it doesn't move. So I'm going to come down 15/16. I take my square, I make a mark, and I'm going to come over 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to go over this way 3/4 of an inch. These will be 2/4 inch holes. This is going to be 1 3/16 inch hole, and next time you see this top, you're going to see holes drilled in it. Alrighty, I have my holes, and so that you can appreciate what we've done, this would be the neck block in the guitar. These holes line up to the neck block, so that is going to hold, and you can see when I put my side set on, there, you can see where that line is. So that is what that does. That's going to locate everything. The neck block has everything lined up. Your hole comes down here. This will be the center of the sound hole. My first cut is going to be halfway through. In fact, all of my cuts are only going to be about halfway through my top. And to be honest with you, I actually have it a little bit, I keep my tops pretty thick so that if I have a problem with tear out, I can go down and do a little bit more work. It's a lot easier to go deeper, so I don't make my top final thickness at this point. My first setting is going to be the actual sound hole. Now, the next noise you hear will be this guy. Alright. That's right on 4 inches. Now the next mark is coming up 1/8. Now I will use a couple of these and some of this. Granted, I'm lucky enough that I have a little bit of doubles of everything. This will be, it's actually a Martin D18 style. Now the D18 style rosette is a little bit simpler than the 28 style. The 28 style has 5, it's black, white, black, white, black inner ring, and then it's black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black. It's 5, 9, and 5. They have changed the rosette a little bit over the years, but it's still basically a 28 style and the 18 style. I have a guitar from 1857, which is 28 style, and it is a black, white, black, and then it's a 5, 9, 5 black, white, black series. And it is a smaller overall rosette than what it is today, but it is still the same 5, 9, 5, and this is a 1, 7, 1, in that it is a black inner ring and an outer ring. Then the center ring is a black, white, you can see it, it's a black, white, black, white, black. The other one's the exact same, and when the two blacks go together, that will make a thicker black inner ring, but it is 7 layers of black, white. Now the easy part of this is getting the tape off, and Danny Brown used to work out at GMC. I used to call him one time and complained about the tape, that I didn't like the tape, so he fixed my wagon by sending me back something with about a roll and a half of tape put on it, which I opened up the box and I kind of had to laugh pretty good because he got me pretty well. Now, I'm going to take, for brevity, I have another setup right here. And this bit here is a very narrow bit, and it'll be set up for the inner ring. And I want this inner ring to fall right to the very edge of the soundboard, or the fingerboard extension. That is the way Martin has it. Going to the outer ring. Now I would like to have about 1/8 of an inch of wood between 2 rings to separate them. So I'm actually going to overshoot the ring here so I can adjust in for that 1/8 inch. Alrighty, I am at 160, so I can tweak this in a little bit. Now overall, I'm going to need a cut thickness here of these two pieces together, which is going to be about 145 thousandths. So I'm going to be shooting for 145 to 150. Also, I don't use super glue. I have found super glue and spruce, they just don't get along. Now, I'm going to start my cut up here underneath the fingerboard, since that's going to cover it, so if I make a mistake, it's not going to be visible. So here I go. I'm just going to drop this down and plunge a little bit. And I can measure that and see where I'm at. I'm about 138. I can need a little bit, so that's just a little tweak. And I'll see what that gives me. Now I have my inner ring, my middle ring, and I got to come and do my outer ring. Now the outer ring is going to be 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to try to make that the exact same as this guy is, which is 120. Now, one way to really help you get very accurate is take a pencil and sharpen it. And I'll make that as sharp as a pin. I can lay my caliper into the groove and I can make a mark. And that's my gap. So I actually want to split that pencil mark and leave most of it. So now I can take this one. And while these two are very similar, this was an older one. This is the older design where here they have an adjustment and this one they don't. But no matter which one you use, if you use it, make sure you lock that puppy down, because if you don't, you can walk on it. So there I can make a little plunge. Now I can measure to see how close I am. 110. I can actually scoot this out a minuscule amount. And that's going to be it. Double check it. There we go. I got 118 versus 120. So I'm not going to worry about 3 thousandths. Alright, now the magic happens. I want a fresh razor blade, and you can see I have a lot of fuzzies going on here. Now the fuzzies will disappear very easily. I take a sanding block, knock the worst of it off. Now I'm going to take some air to blow the fibers up. So at this point, we get to have a little mess removal. And now you can see how clean that actually looks. Now, to glue in the rosette, there's a lot of people that will go to the bother of spraying this with shellac and then using the CA glue, super glue. I find that pretty much an added process that you don't need. Fresh razor blade. And I'm going to take my first string going to stick it in here, come around with it, and my fresh razor blade will allow me to cut it off very cleanly. Now, I've made this just a bit long so that when I go to put that in, the joint will be nice and tight. The next one I'm going to put in will be my multi-V black and white. Start it here, bring it around. And here I'm not going to worry that my joint isn't perfect because it's underneath the fingerboard. So I'm just going to get it close and nip it off. Now again, this is the D18. This is a much simpler rosette than the 28 style. And that little bit of a gap there is nothing. And then this guy here, I'm going to do the same thing in the first. Stick it up here, run it around. So now my rosette is pretty much prepped. Inner ring, outer ring, middle. Now, here's how you glue one of these in. Have a piece of paper towel ready. And I'm just going to force the glue into that little groove. I can take my inner ring, which is the short one, bring this end up to butt against that, and then I can just force it right into the cut. That's done. Black rings in. Inner and outer ring, same thing. Smear some glue in there. And for those of you that are my age, you probably remember some of the things that were done with this glue. Goes in the hole. Now I like to use a little piece of wood or something to help squish that right in. Boom. In it goes. Wipe it off. Now, one more ring, and if you hold this right, reasonably vertical, and gently squeeze, you're actually forcing the glue into that groove. So you're filling the groove up with glue, not necessarily smearing it around the top. And here we go. Squish it in, rub it around, and you can see it just falls right in. And I'm actually kind of rubbing that glue around a little bit. That helps to fill voids. And now, yes, hammer. And what this does, it's kind of like helps hydraulic the glue through the material. And you can actually see glue coming up here. So we're definitely bedding this into the glue. So now those are people who are going to argue and say, well, the CA will allow me to work faster, and this is real time. That Duco cement grabs very quickly. I have my sander set for 185 thousandths. So as you can see, if you're using super glue to save time, if you do your rosette properly, Duco is just fine. And I don't have to worry about yellowing. Now I'm going to cut the hole out. Okay, whenever I'm done with my rosette, I always take this back down to the sound hole so that I know I can cut out the sound hole you don't want to accidentally put this on here and cut through the middle of the rosette. So whenever I pull this off, I always take that right down to my sound hole. Now out it comes. Okay. Now, as you can see, I have a very nicely rosetted top. I can take my sander and there you are. That is how you do a standard Martin style rosette. We're going to have a video to show you a number of other complicated and more sophisticated rosettes. You'll find them on our website at www.bluescreekguitars.com. Anyway, I hope you've learned something, and I hope you enjoyed our video. Thank you. Alrighty, we're going to do another rosette now. This will be the 45 style, Martin style with pearl. We're going to have a series of black, white, black inner and outer rings and a black, white, black inner ring with some heavy black, white, thin black, white, but a ring of power through the center. Again, you're going to see that I don't need to use CA. This is all that I need. I will use tight bond to hold the glue the pearl in. But you're going to see just how quick this actually can go. It's not a very long, time-consuming process. The first cut I am going to make will be the actual sound hole. So this has already been preset. It's an OM side. So here we go. Now I've delineated my sound hole. The next part will be the first ring. The first ring of the rosette is going to be a series of black, white, black, white, black. And like I told you before, if you order this from Martin, here's what you're going to get. You're going to be getting a series of different sizes of the Bolter-on plastic. You have black, white, black, whatever. And it will drive you crazy the first couple times you do it, but this will be your inner and outer ring right there, and that's your center ring. Now what I like to do, I do use a 3/32 bit. I have a number of these rosette cutters, as you can see. I also have a rosette cutter that you put in the drill press and just do it all at one time, but that wouldn't be any fun. This way you get to see how to do it the old-fashioned way. Most people who are viewing these videos are probably first starting out. You might have made your own rosette jigs. You might have bought the one from Stuart McDonald that uses the Dremel. This is a Stuart McDonald base. It has a lock on it, and it has a little adjuster. I don't like this adjuster. It's very frail. I wish they would put something a little bit more robust. So you have to be very careful. Right now I'm separating all of my rosettes. So I have my inner, my outer, and the first one actually I'm going to cut will be the inner. I also want to use a dial caliper. A dial caliper, anybody who, this is a dial caliper, I'm going to set it to 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch is 125 thousandths. That will be my gap between the rings. I want to be approximately 1/8 of an inch above my sound hole. I can take my little pencil that I had sharpened. I can make my mark. And this first rosette ring, the first rosette ring is going to be just that it shows, or maybe under the edge of the fretboard. I don't lose a lot of sleep, but I will make this one very finished looking so that if it does expose any of the rings, I will have them closed up. Now I had this preset. Now you can see that my fit is very nice. I'm not going to worry about trimming this off right now. I'm going to cut all of my rosettes and then I'll worry about trimming. But I do know that that's a good one. I also have a little flat sanding block here. I just want to knock the high get the high guys knocked off. Now I am going to move in 1/8 of an inch. I have my dial caliper and I have my pencil. Now I'm not putting a very big mark on there, just enough that I can see. This little ruler scale that they have on the base of this little device is basically, in my opinion, useless. So what I'm actually going to do, since this is the middle ring, I can go a little wide and then I can come in so I can control that depth of 1/8 inch very precisely. Okay, any adjustment that I made at this point is up here where it'll be underneath the fingerboard. So nothing will show. If you want to, you can do a storyboard where you do all of this and drop it down on. But I'm not too much worried. So here we are, just about perfect 1/8 inch. Now, this series of holes here has to take the brunt of the middle ring. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's going to be, but I start with a black, white, black. There we go. White, black, Teflon. This Teflon is going to have 65 thousandths wide. black, white, black, and white, black. So now we have this whole chain together. And just learning how to handle this in itself is a skill. And we can see how wide this is. And I get 300, about 340 thousandths. So I'm going to set this to 340. I'm going to give myself just a little bit because this plastic will swell because of the glue. So now I can start just going crazy and widen this groove. Let it go in. So I'm going to adjust my fit now so I can make it. I want it snug, but I don't want it so tight that I have to fight it. So I can see I need to adjust my cutter, do another pass or two, and I'll be able to get this nice and snug in there. You want it tight, but you got to allow a little bit for the glue expansion, not much. And what I'm actually doing here is I'm just taking about maybe 1.5 inch swath underneath the area where the fingerboard's going to be. That was pretty close. That's what I want. Okay, I'm done with that. One more cut at 1/8 of an inch. And this will be the final outer ring. Alright, one more cut and we're probably about done. All of my grooves cut. I'm going to take a little blast of compressed air and I'm going to blow the wood fibers up so I can cut them off with the sanding block. Now there'll be those of you who are saying, why aren't you using a downward spiral bit? And being a machinist, I don't use a downward spiral bit anywhere where I do not have a cleared hole. And by that, if I have something in the bottom, all I'm doing is driving chips into my work. And once you go and just do what I did, all the wood fibers would be bent down on the edge. When you lift them up, all of a sudden you go from a nice joint to a hole. And I don't want to have any AFM, so with that, we're ready to inlay our stuff. So I have black, white, black for the inside and the outside. I'm going to start on the inside. Black, white, black, white, black. I'm going to take my razor blade. I want to get a nice clean cut. And I want it reasonably square. And I'm actually going to cut this off just a little longer than it really needs to be. And I mean just a little bit. Okay, good. I'm going to take this, a little ratty here, I'm just going to clean off the edge. I have a mark. Now, I'm going to put the glue, and if you take notice, I'm right above, and I'm basically squirting my Duco right into the groove. You see that? The next step, when this ends are flush, you can see down here I have the longest one being on the outside. I actually like to stagger this joint just a little bit. Now I can run this around. When I stagger my joint and I come up here to make them together, what this will do, it will fool, it's going to fool the eye, so that when we sand this down, that will make that joint pretty much invisible. I'm tapping this down because all of the glue is on the bottom of the groove, and by tapping it down, it's going to hydraulic that right up through the middle of all of my joinery and make that nice and snug. The Teflon strip, that's where the pearl gets applied, has a piece of tape on the bottom of it. That is your bottom. Now, I do not worry about making this joint perfect like I do the others. It's underneath the fingerboard. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. And there's a couple million people in New York I'm sure will never see it. I give it a nice little lather of Duco. I'm going to take my tape off down here. I'm double checking that I got my black, white, black series and not that it's black somewhere. And now I can set this in. It helps having big, wide, flat thumbs. And if you don't have them, this little block of nylon does a real nice job. You can see I have this going out in a different path. I can cut them flush. I got to pull this around just a little bit. There we go. The first couple times you do this, it's very intimidating. But once you get the hang of it, you find out it really ain't all that bad. Nothing to it. And again, Happy Gilmore. Happy? Tippy tappy. Okay. Last one's simple. Have a little bit of tape there, want to get off. This will be the outer ring. Black, white, black, white, black. Same thing. Squish the tape right into it. And we're going to do this in real time, so you're going to see this is actually quicker and better than using a CA bath. I don't have to worry about turning yellow. You're going to have to offset this a little bit. And I seriously am not worried about the gapping at all. This is all underneath the fingerboard. That don't matter to me. It's about 25 after. I will give this about 2 minutes to start setting. And that is a 45 Rosette. I will call it green because the glue's still wet. Our plastic is set. I'm going to allow this to hold up just a little bit. I can see the glue here, and as soon as my glue has dried up, I'm going to run this through. I have my sander set to what I would call a finish depth to my top. I let my top a little heavy. I'm going to go in, I'm going to surface this to my existing top. We'll let the glue set up for about maybe a half an hour, and then I'm going to put the pearl in. In fact, I don't even know if I have to allow it a half an hour. But once I start doing the pearl, and I have it right here, I don't get the straight pearl, or the curved pearl. I use straight. And I like to use the old snap and break method. And here's our pearl. And with that, we're going to now run this through the sander so you can see in real time. You probably would be still waiting for your shellacs. Okay, I just got done sanding this. I probably left the glue 5 minutes to set. I only had to take about 5 or 10 thousandths off. The next step will be I'll be lifting this little strip here of Teflon out. Then I will be putting my pearl in. I don't know if you can see the luster of the pearl, but we'll be dropping the pearl into this little area. What makes this so unique is you don't have to have curved pearl. It's not necessary. All you need is this, a little bit of white glue or yellow glue. And something to break the pearl. You can use almost anything, an old saddle. Here you are. Something plastic. It really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to lift this up. And I have a void to drop my pearl in. And I can just put a little bit of glue on there. Okay. Now I can just start breaking. Now I'm gently pushing this in basically butting the pearl against each other. I am using tight bond. You can use white glue, you can use almost anything. Now I do know that I said I never use super glue on the top, but I may use super glue to go over the top of pearl on the top. And that is if I need to. Also, you just don't want to go and wipe with the pearl. You want to wipe across the pearl. If you go with the pearl, you can lift a lot of it up. Now, I'm just, because my Duco is still a little green, I'm not working the whole area. I just go a couple of inches. And I like using this nylon block because I have a sharp corner, and I don't know if you can see that. I'm actually using the actual corner of the block to push the pearl down in and create a fracture zone so I can snap the pearl. And the more breaks I can get in the pearl, the better. a nice little bead, doesn't take a lot. If you ever get the opportunity to meet Wayne Henderson, you'll notice that his pants, he has these like little armored areas of dried up glue. Me, I rub it underneath my bench. Now I'm checking here. I'm just going across with my fingers to feel where I'm high or low. And that's pretty good. I have a nice fill. Alright. A little more. And you can hear it cracking. The product I am using is Avalon. And I get my pearl supplies from one of two suppliers. I either get it from Andy DePaul or Dave Nichols. I love Dave Nichols' stuff. Dave always treats me well. People in his shop, we're talking Kiefer and Mulver Hill, Nadine, Dane, Tracy, they're all nice folks. If you ever been up there for a class, you know what it's like. And that man taught me a lot. So I plug my friend Mr. Nichols. Okay, I now have a rosetted pearl inlaid 45 style rosette. Now at this point, that glue is a little, just starting to tack up. I want to get a little water so I can rinse it off. And one nice thing about glue does a couple of things. If you ever had one of those little itty bitty splinters that just drive you crazy, if you put Tite Bond on there and let it harden and peel it off, it usually brings them little buggers up and out for you. So you can see that's wet. I will give this about a half an hour to dry. Then I can run that through the sander, cut the sound hole out, and you'll see the finished product. Alrighty, my glue's dried. I can now run this through my sander, and we can finish it off. I'm going to show you how to make a very complex looking rosette, but I'm going to show you how to do it very simply. What we're going to do, instead of just a solid wood rosette, we're actually going to make this a series of little tiles. Now, this does not mean it's a very complicated setup at all. All you need to do is decide what woods you want to use. In this case, we're going to use Babinga, and I'm going to use Black Limba. What I will do is I will rip this to a given width, and you're going to see I'm not even going to measure it. Then I'm going to take it to the sander, and I'm going to sand an angle on it. Then we're going to set it up on a backer, and then we're going to actually show you how to set it in. There's a lot of variations to this. I hope that you like what you see. And the first step is now I am going to just turn this into a bunch of tiles. Now, it doesn't matter, you can use a bandsaw, table saw. In this case I'm using my piling saw, and I'm just going to cut these little tiles out, and it won't take long to do that. I'm going to do about 1 1/4 inch, 1.5 inches. So now I have, as you can see, I have 6 pieces. I'm now going to take this over to the bandsaw, and I'm going to cut these into 3 or 4 more pieces. So, in a random length here. And you can see the stack, you know, they're just totally opposite. I'm going to take a clamp so I can clamp these and hold these pretty firmly. And all I'm going to do then is I'm going to sand an angle on them on my sander. Now here's where the magic's going to happen. So you can see that's sanded right, kind of like a keystone in an arch. Alright, I do have to move my clamp a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. As you can see, I mean, I didn't do any measuring. I just made a nice stack. Now I'll take them out. And I can just lay them across this disc. And I can see that I need a little bit more angle. You can see I'm not getting them to be so tight. So now I'll just put these back. And I probably only need about half of these. And I'm going to go over there, and you can see I have, the one side isn't quite like the other, so I'm just going to turn that one into the other side. It'll be just fine. Now let's see what that means. That looks a little bit better. And we can play with this until we get it I think that'll work. Okay. That's going to give me about a 4.5 inch circle. So that's going to work pretty well. Okay. Next step. Like I said, I'm going to have about a 4.5 inch circle, 2 1/4 inches. So we're going to check this out right about here. I'm going to draw a reference circle on here. Alright, this is going to be for a double O, which is 3 5/8, or a little over 3, I think it's 3 5/8 circle. So that's going to be 3 5/16. So we're going to go there. That's going to be the sound hole. So we're just going to get an idea of about what things are going to look like. 3 3/4, 4 1/2. So I'm going to change this a little bit more so I can get a little bit more splay. So I'm just going to have to add a tile or two in here and change the angle. So you can see this works pretty quickly. We'll give it 2. Now let's see how this is going to look. And I'd like to be a little bit more outside the rim than I had. Okay. Looks like it's going to work all right. However, I may need a few more tiles. Okay. So we're going to add a few more to the mix, and this should be the last tweak. Now if you want to sit and draw out with a compass and a ruler from the center and make yourself a pattern, that's very doable. I just like to play with stuff sometimes. I have a lot more fun with hands-on stuff. And there's no laws on to how many tiles you need, and you're always going to put your odd underneath the fingerboard. So now, we can tweak our tiles. And this is going to be the easy part. Because when we're going to put this together, we're going to take super glue. And what I need to do, I have found that it can be very tricky trying to manipulate these tiles into a rosette just by gluing side by side. So I put them on a strata, and we're actually going to be laying this in upside down. Okay, so this is going to be the fingerboard. That'll look just fine. Here, that's pretty good. And all I'm doing is taking these edges, I don't know if you can see it that way, and I'm straightening them up. Okay, that's going to work. And there's a crooked edge yet. I want my joints to be nice and smooth and flush. So we're just checking all of our edges that they're nice and flat and that they look good. You can also manipulate the radius a little bit here. And once I'm happy with everything, and I think we're about there now, it's going to work good. I want to get a little more angle on this. This will be underneath the fingerboard. There we go. Now you can get really fancy with this. You can do a lot of crazy things. Okay, now the super glue activator. Now, the gluing process to this is not difficult. You just start with one, and I'm holding these two together, and I'm making sure that that joint is good, and you can see it's a little not perfect. So I'm just going to give that a quick joint, and there we are. That's good. That's pretty. So I can set that on here. I like that. Now we start with wax paper. And I'll put the wax paper over my strata, because the strata is still what I want to use for my bases. But I want to make sure that I'm on the radius, on the outside radius that I want to be. That's good, and that's good. So I can put these two together. A little touch of super glue. Touch of activator. That's one. Now, number two. Number three. Almost glued my pinkies together. 4. Now I got to manipulate this a little bit. That's going to be the oddball out. And once you actually do this, you can, when we get this into the top, we can manipulate this. We can put pearl in it. You're limited by your imagination. And if I'm getting anything to you in this video, that's what I want it to be. Is that whatever you can imagine, there's a way to do it. There should be my outer part. Okay, I need a little more here. So, stick that over here. And this is going to be my fingerboard area, so I'm not really going to lose a lot of sleep as to what I have here. And I can see I have a decent result going around. And here, just got to make a filling piece. That'll work. And this is just going to be up underneath fingerboard, and I'm just putting this on here as a filler. That's all it's for. Now we get it off the wax paper. And you can see why I want to put it on a strata, because I mean this is obviously somewhat delicate. And since I have circles, I know where my inner ring is. I can just take this, squish it on there, and there we are. Now while this is drying up and curing, I can set that over here. Now we can cut the rosette. Now I've done the same thing. This is a double O top. I've marked where my position of the fingerboard was. That would be covered in whenever you're laying out your top. We have the position where we know where the 14th fret's going to be. This is going to be the end of my fingerboard. My sound hole is going to be, that should be the top of the sound hole right there. That's my sound hole ring right here. So I'm going to adjust my cutter to make my sound hole. Then once I get my sound hole, I can move up what I think I'm going to see what I can get off of that rosette. And there we are. There's the sound hole diameter. And here we go. So I can take this. I have a center hole already put in here. I can drop this down. And just to get an idea of about where my sound hole is going to be, I know that I'm probably not going to be too bad. Yep. Alright, I'm going to actually give myself maybe a little bit heavy of an eighth coming up. So I'm going to come into here, maybe 3/16 from the edge, and that's where I'm going to start my sound hole cut. Or not my sound hole cut, but the rosette cut. So I'm going to loosen this up. Take it out, and I'll probably want to get somewhere between maybe 1/4 to 3/8. I don't want to make it too monstrous, too big. But if I can get about 3/8, that would be pretty nice. If I want to put a pearl ring in the middle, I get about a 1/16 inch of pearl with a black strip on each side. That would be an 1/8. So that you'd have nice symmetry. You'd have an 1/8 of the wood rosette, 1/8 of the pearl, and an 1/8 of the wood rosette again. And then we're going to have a black border in and around here. So I go out a little bit more, and that's going to give me some playroom. Now you also want to watch your wood as you're cutting. Some of these spruces can be a bugger for tear out. That's why I always try to surface my top. As soon as I get a good surface, no matter what my top thickness is, that's when I want a rosette. In this case, we're probably running about 150 thousandths, so I got 25 thousandths of adjustment in depth if I have any serious tear out. You can see I do have some tear out here, but it's very minor. I'm now going to clear out the field. And here I can be a little bit more aggressive. pretty much took care of that. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm done with this one. I'm going to grab my other one. And you got to start from the outside, because if you don't, you're going to cut your center points out and you're going to ruin your chance. So I will adjust this so that I am literally on the top, because I'm going to make the rosette try to fill the hole. I'm not going to count on the rosette totally filling the hole, because I will be doing a little bit of a purfling cut. But you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I can cut this off very carefully. Okay. Now I also want you to notice while I'm doing this, my rosette's getting cut. I keep this cutter up underneath the area of the fingerboard. If I'm cutting through my strata and I'm into the top, I'm not going to worry about it up there, but down here I would. Cut through my strata, so I can use this for the next adjustment, and I can feel pretty confident that I'm not going to hurt anything. And I'm going to cut the inside now. And again, I'm basically right over the ledge, but hanging into the cut just a hair. I'm going to stay over the fingerboard area. And now this will be the inner ring. Now, since I have the inner and outer ring resolved, I'm going to set this back out to the outer ring, flip it, I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to do the same thing and get the inner ring out. And you'd say, why didn't I do that the first time? Well, I like to get the inner and outer ring first and have that delineated. Then I do the trimming. The bit that I am using is a 1/32 bit. I can set the inner ring. Now I got the inner ring set. I can turn this around and this should drop right in when I'm done. Now up here is where I want to be up with this. And you can see that fits that hole. So what I'm going to do, carefully, get this back out. This is, I can use Duco cement or I can use Titebond. My choice of glue is Titebond. And the beauty is with this, in about 15 minutes I can do the finish up. Give it a nice little coating of glue. And what I'm going to do to help me is I'm going to actually cut this right here. That way I know where I'm supposed to be for my fingerboard. It'll also allow me a little bit of fudging room. There's the fingerboard, there it goes in, and I can just rub this in. Now this strata is going to be removed in the next step. So now I have all of those tiles stuck on here, and I can put a gravity clamp on there, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, I sanded the strata off. You can see the rosettes underneath here. The next step is going to be putting the black rings in and out. And that's going to be just a 5-minute process, and you'll get to see that happen right before your eyes. So, to recap, we made our tile. We did the strata thing. I cut my inner and outer rosette. Alright? It went through the sander. I took the strata off. You can see we have the wood rosette hanging here. The next step will be to take this guy, right here, already attached. I'm going to adjust it for the inner and the outer ring, which we're going to make black. I always like to work from out to in, and I'm just going to split this joint. I just want to split my connection. And the reason why is I want to take about an even amount off of the rosette as I do the spruce, and you'll see why when I drop my line. Alright, there's the inner ring cut. We have the outer ring cut. Because we're kind of forcing things along here a little bit, I have one tile that popped up, but that's going to go down in a minute. That's the outer. And this will be the inner. I always like to offset my inner ring from the dead center. Okay, in this rosette we're going to do somewhat of an offset wood rosette. We aren't just going to have the round donut. We're going to have the donut so it's thinner at the top and thicker at the bottom. So in order to do this and make it work, get yourself a little bit of tape. I'm going to tape this on my top. I have, this is 2 pieces of blood wood that's glued together. I'm going to put my center line to center line, and I'm taping this on. The reason why I am doing this is I have to put a hole that corresponds to here. Now this hole is not where it needed to be. This top was originally a mistake, so I made it a smaller one, and I'm just going to throw this hole 1/2 of an inch on center to the other one. And when we come back and we start making our rosette, you'll understand what is offset. Like 2 holes. So these 2 holes line up. The lower hole is my center of the sound hole. So I'm going to take this off for now. And this gets really, really confusing. So I recommend that you mark your center hole. Now, I have 2 cutters for this job. I'm going to need this guy. And I'm going to need this one. Now the first cut that I'm going to make, I'm going to delineate where my sound hole will actually be. So this will be my sound hole radius. Just double checking. I'm using a 1/32 cutter here, just because that's what happens to be in it. I'm putting my mark where I have my center hole mark. Now that finishes the circle cut. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump this up a notch. And I gotta make one low cut. And what's going to happen is this thing spins. I'm going to start with a small rosette up here. Now I can put this on. And I'll make a cut here. But I have to step this one out about the thickness of the cutter. And you have to start from the outside and work your way in. You have that ready to go. Right there. That is there. Now I go back to the center. And I'm going to put this into that cut. I'm actually going to hold it a little bit off of that cut for a reason, because I want to put some binding in there. So now the second cut. Okay, we made the inner cut on the rosette. I put this wood piece back on. And you have to start from the outside in for this wood rosette. It's the only way you can do it. Because you have to maintain the center pin in relationship to this little guy. Also, you've noticed when I'm doing it on the wood, I am turning my wood disc. Here we go. Okay. Now I have to remove all this field. I have a little sanding block here. Oops, my eyeballs. Now I can remove the field. Bear with me. We have everything, we cleared the field. Now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to use good old-fashioned tight bond. I'm going to put my rosette into the field, and I'm not worried about my ends, and I'll tell you why. We're going to be putting a little bit of panache on here. I like that word. By the way, I want to thank, we have Glenn LaSalle behind the camera, and there's Dean Bear also behind the camera, and they're making me look good. So thank you guys. They work cheap. Now I can put my little rosette ring in here, and you're going to say, well, how do you clamp it in? Has anybody ever used gravity clamps? And people are saying, what are gravity clamps? Shiny pieces of metal. Woo. And the beauty of tight bond, in 10 minutes, I'll be ready to go. So we'll give this 10 minutes to cure up, and you'll see me back in a few minutes. Now you can see we have our piece of wood, the center part in. Now I'm going to frame it with just the little black purfling strips. So I'm going to put this in, and I'm just going to basically go right around the cut that I originally set. Okay, that's part one. Part two, got a fresh razor blade. Now, I want to hide my joint, even though this area is probably going to be under the fingerboard. I'm going to hide my joint by offsetting it. That'll work. Now, the second cut, I have to go back to the second cut that we did. Keep this down so I don't lose my position. Take my cutter, adjust it, and I'm trying to hit half top and half of the wood that I put in there. Now you can do anything. I'm just doing a simple black, but you can do pearl. You can do anything. I'm going to trim the other one. Like I told you before, I am not a fan of super glue. I like my dew coat. And I'm just pushing that right into the groove. And we're going to let the gravity do its job. Okay, let's put the gravity clamps back on there. Okay, we've got to set the sound hole back. Oh, I just have wires here. So now we set our sound hole back. One step yet, and we'll have a top. like, run through the sander. And that's an elliptical rosette.